Welcome to the Nerdist Podcast number 892. Oh my gosh, we're closing in on 900. So soon. So soon! This episode brought to you by Loot Crate. If you're on a quest for epic gear, or collectibles, or housewares, whatever it is, just things that make you happy in general because they somehow revolve around your fields of interest, pop culturally, Loot Crate has it. The best surprise that you know is coming each month. You will forget that you have subscribed to Loot Crate, and then all of a sudden you just get this box in the mail. It just runs in the background of your life, and then you just get this box full of stuff in the mail, and then you're reminded that, hey, I'm nice to myself sometimes, and that's okay. Now, if you want to get really fancy, there's a bigger box with even bigger loot with Loot Crate DX. And if you want to throw some stuff at your pet, epic gear for the pet, Loot Pets as well. The stuff that you're going to get in these boxes wherever you go, like if you wear a shirt or if you have a keychain or whatever it is, people go, hey, where'd you get that? People will envy your pop culture gear prowess. So if you go, because these are exclusive at lootcrate.com/Nerdist, enter the offer code Nerdist to save 10% off any new subscription. August Loot Crate theme is Kingdom. It's Kingdom. So you might get stuff from Legend of Zelda, Adventure Time, Lord of the Rings. One lucky subscriber is going to win a mega crate of incredibly epic proportions. You have until the 19th at 9 p.m. Pacific to subscribe to receive that month's crate. When the cutoff happens, it's over. Go to lootcrate.com/Nerdist and enter the promo code Nerdist to save 10% off any new subscription today. Here's the Nerdist Community Corkboard from users like you. This is events at nerdist.com if you have something, or you can, there's an events pin up at the Nerdist subreddit. The young man by the name of Nicholas Nieblas, I'm going to go Nieblas, Nieblas, Nieblas. I'm going to say Nieblas, or Nieblas. A year ago, our family expanded from 6 humans and no animals, unless you count the 4 kids, to 6 humans and one beautiful rescue lab pit named Khaleesi. 1 year later, our family has expanded once more to include another pup, Khal Drogo. Drogo has been adopted and returned before and is a special boy who looks as tough as Voldemort, but he's really sweet as Neville Longbottom. Drogo has a congenital defect that caused his tail to fuse together with part of his spine. The prior adopters likely saw that Drogo couldn't get around as well as they wanted and decided they just couldn't deal with it. Unfortunately, our family is in a bit of a transition that will end with me being a full-time stay-at-home dad. We planned for this transition, we planned for an additional family member in the transition, but did not plan for the sudden necessary expense. The surgery isn't much, but we have set up a GoFundMe, and if anyone feels inclined to help out, we'd be forever grateful. You can find more info at gofundme.com/The Tale of Khal Drogo, KHALDROGO, which I'm sure you know how to spell. But please know that it is Tail, T-A-I-L, and not T-A-L-E. So a lot of spelling, lot of spelling trapdoors in that one right there. But that's for Nicholas. Michelle writes, I'm the artist owner of Sunrise Soapworks. I personally hand-make small batches of bar soap, sugar scrubs, and lip scrubs with the best ingredients your skin will love. All the bars are vegan. I offer a variety of scented or unscented so everyone can enjoy them. I started my own company in July 2017 on Etsy, and I'll be participating in my first in-person event on August 19th, 2017 from 11 to 5 p.m. at San Diego School is Cool Bash at Parkway Plaza in El Cajon, California. If this makes podcasts, I want to offer 10% off their order. Nicely done. On Etsy or in person at the event. To anyone who mentions that they heard this very thing that I am talking about right now on the Nerdist Podcast using the coupon code NerdsLoveSoap. Visit my shop at sunrisesoapworks.com. This episode is Robert Pattinson, who is a damn delight. You know, again, I met Rob once. We sat across from each other at a dinner, at a birthday dinner for a mutual friend. It's really sweet, but I've never really seen him in a long-form interview, so I had no idea if he was going to be chatty or not chatty or shy, and he was so nice and lovely of a human being. It was a real absolute pleasure to talk to him, and I hope we get him back on it sometime. But your pants are gonna be delighted off at how lovely of a guy he is. And he's promoting the new film Good Time, which is opening August 11th, getting rave reviews, by the way, 92% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's directed by Ben and Josh Safdie, and it looks fantastic, and he looks great in it. So that is August 11th. You can see that. And again, thank you to Robert Pattinson for being awesome and a half. Also, just quick little promo for I'm doing a bunch of stand-up dates in the fall. I'll be at Acme in Minneapolis in September. I'm going to be performing at the New York Comedy Festival November 10th. I'll be there at Caroline's for that. And then a handful of other dates. I'm going to post those somewhere soon. Probably on my Facebook, facebook.com/Hardwick. That's where I'll post those. Yeah, it's weird because Nerdist is not like my personal blog, and sometimes I still think of it as that just because I started it. And then I realize, like, oh yeah, I don't have a sidebar on Nerdist.com anymore for my stand-up date. So I should probably get on that because I'm going to, now that At Midnight's done. And thank you so much for watching At Midnight if you did. It was an incredible 600 episodes. Absolute dream job. I have to thank all the amazing comedians on the show, especially the people who were there. That's where I first got emotional, was when I saw how many people had agreed to come back on our last episode, or number 600. But what a dream job, and I have nothing negative to say about the experience. It was just a complete joy from start to finish. So if you watched At Midnight, if you hashtagged in Hashtag Wars, thank you so much for allowing me to have that job for 4 years and just fuck around with my friends about the internet. And thanks to Comedy Central for giving us so much runway. I mean, it was absolutely an honor and a pleasure to do that show, and it will always be a special moment in time for me. And also, a lot of people said a lot of nice things about it, which also overwhelmed me. I thought people were going to be like, good riddance, fuck off. But I'm still getting stuff today, every day, about people who miss the show and who say congratulations, and a lot of good coverage, and in a lot of the publications. And so I just want to say thank you so much. It was incredibly meaningful to me, and I really appreciate it. And this episode also brought to you by Blue Apron. Blue Apron is the #1 fresh ingredient and recipe delivery service in the country. You're going to spend less than $10 a meal. You're going to get seasonal recipes along with pre-portioned ingredients right to your door. And, I got Blue Apron for my mom because she loves to cook. But I was like, yeah, maybe it doesn't always feel like going to the grocery store. So they just send her all the ingredients, and she goes to town, loves her Blue Apron. Some August meals include basil pesto chicken with summer vegetable panzanella, sautéed shrimp, green beans, globe tomato, spinach, orzo pasta, whole grain pasta, summer vegetables, heirloom tomato caprese salad. So check out this week's menu. Get your first 3 meals free with shipping by going to blueapron.com/Nerdist. You're going to love how good it feels. It tastes amazing. You're going to create incredible home-cooked meals with Blue Apron. So please don't wait. That's blueapron.com/Nerdist. Blue Apron, a better way to cook. Thank you to them for sponsoring this episode of the Nerdist Podcast, which is 892. Mr. Robert Pattinson, Katie, please roll that business.
Now entering Nerdist.com.
We can actually just launch with this, because this is all fun stuff to talk about, because I've been in Los Angeles for so long. But it's all just the corporatization of that area, because like Yamashiro's closed, which was that really famous Japanese place that was up on the top. Yes, I don't know.
But I've never even gone there.
I know.
I always drive past it so many times.
Well, I got some bad news for you. But it, because I guess the commercial property values are so jacked over there that someone bought that building and then realized, like, oh, these people could be paying 5 times what they're paying, and the family who owned Yamashiro's was like, we can't sell that much sushi. And so they were like, well, fuck off. And so they shut it down, and now it's something else.
But is the building still the same?
I don't know if the building is still the same, or if everything gets fucking torn down now. Like,
that was such a sick building.
I
like
know.
Kyoto. Like, it's just so strange when you drive past it and you're like, that looks amazing.
Do you spend time in Japan?
Yeah, I mean, I never gone just to work, but I actually did a press tour for Harry Potter when I was 18, which is probably it's just the most different. I don't understand. I don't know if the other press tours for the other movies in Harry Potter were like this, but it was unbelievable. And I basically did 2 days work, and I was in Japan for 2 weeks.
Oh wow,
it was incredible. And we just went on tours everywhere. I went all around Kyoto, went to Nagasaki. It was incredible. And I was like, why am I being like, why is this allowed?
I think I don't know. I think if you're an Avenger, you get like 1 day in a city, and then you're like and it goes like, okay, we're in Kyoto, now we got to go to Colombia.
Yeah.
Now we got to go to New Zealand. So I think you got a pretty sweet end of the deal there.
It's crazy. I mean, it is funny. I mean, I kind of love doing press tours like that, but yeah, also works as well. Everyone just does like New York and LA, and it's like just go to like Nepal, and then everyone will go and see the movie.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Actually, I don't know how many.
Well, but as an example, yeah, sure, anywhere else. But the press tours, I mean, I ran into Edgar Wright in between Baby Driver press tour, where he had done all the domestic press, and he had like 3 days off, and then he was about to go do all the like the European press. And he was just like, I just need a couple of days to not... I mean, I can't imagine traveling just the idea of traveling sucks as it is. But it's like, now you got to travel. Now for 8 to 12 hours a day, you have to be super focused and answer a bunch of the same questions and then not spoil anything.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I've been doing a few interviews with the directors on this, and they're much more focused than I I'm literally like, I'm like, this is easy. I just say that. I was even saying, I was doing an interview the other day, and they're like, and I was just saying, like, I don't even care if people see the movie. Really, I mean, I just like meeting new people. That's why I'm doing. That's why I'm doing these interviews. He's like, oh,
but then the headline is like, Robert Pattinson doesn't care if you see his movie. Like, no, that's not what I was. You're taking it out of context.
Exactly.
But it's. I mean, especially because what I sense from what you do is a lot of. It seems like you like working on really intimate things, and even though you worked on like some of the biggest film series in film. But I've seen a lot of the stuff you do is like really intimate and like really carefully crafted storytelling. And so, I mean, I'm sure it's a blessing curse kind of a thing, where it's like, okay, you have this platform where you get to choose the type of projects you do, and people know who you are. But the downside is like, people, you're trying to promote something really cool that you're excited about, and people want to talk about gossipy crap, and that I can't imagine, that it just be like, okay, yes, but can we please just focus on this thing that was really artistic and special?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, but also at the same time, it's difficult to talk about that as well. When people are like, "Oh, talk about your process or whatever," I don't know. Like, what happens if someone watches a movie and they don't like it, and then they're just like, "That process didn't work." Like, I mean, it's just kind of, I have no idea. And it's also there's always some kind of vaguely embarrassing talking about acting. I don't know why. It's just kind of because you're just sort of. I don't know. You're just like, I don't know what you're doing. I don't have no idea what anybody's doing. Yeah. I mean, I guess like, I like watching interviews with like Brando or whatever, but,
sure.
But like really pretty much anybody else. I'm like, I don't know.
Well, it's hard because I think sometimes, and we talk about process a lot on this podcast. We don't have to. We just do a lot of the time. Because people tend to have a lot of similar ideas about what they want to do, but of course everyone has a slightly different way about doing it. But there is also an idea that, there are some performers who it's like if they talk about it too much and they get in their head about it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, I don't want to intellectualize it, because then that takes me out of the moment of it, and that can be kind of weird too.
Yeah. I mean, especially when I think with me, I mean, pretty much all of my drive and enthusiasm for anything is born out of chronic insecurity and self-hatred. and it's kind of annoying. It's a vicious circle, and if you ever get out of that, if you succeed at something, then like you're gonna be lost forever.
Well, and I think it's also interesting. I think it's interesting for people to hear you say that, because I'm sure people have a very one-dimensional idea of who they think you are, or what you're like, or what, based on not any real information. And so you can run into someone at a party and go, wow, that guy was really aloof, what a jerk. But if you could hear his internal monologue, that person might be going, I don't feel comfortable, it's weird to be here, I don't know how to talk to people in this type of a social environment. And so I just think it's good, especially now when social media is just dominating the way people communicate. I think it's nice for people to hear like, oh yes, this guy's a human being and he has feelings, and he has the same types of feelings that you have, because we're all human.
Yeah. And then the person who's revealing that then feels completely empty and saying, oh, I'm not special at all.
Well, it is a strange, and I think some of it, I think a lot of it also comes from, because half my family's background is, my mom's Italian, but my dad's family is like English, Scottish, like that's the history. And I feel like with the UK in general, or maybe even like, I don't know, Catholic background, which my family has too, there's a lot of like, oh no, I'm not, please don't look, I'm not special, I'm not, and yet we pursue these things that would contradict that. I mean, it is kind of a strange thing to go, I should be in a movie. People should pay attention to what I'm saying.
It's funny. So I was watching what's the show with Jimmy Iovine and
the Defiant Ones.
Defiant Ones, yeah. And the thing which Springsteen was saying, like, you know, everything which anyone makes is born out of like something like basically like chronic insecurity and visions of grandeur, and this thing is like an equal measure. And I was like, oh, and just hearing him say that, I was like, huh. Well, if Springsteen thinks that,
if Springsteen, yeah. I mean, I've heard people say, like, even Paul McCartney said, like, oh, until a few years ago, I really thought someone was going to tap me on the shoulder and be like, hey, you're an imposter. Like, really? Like, how much evidence do you need at that point?
Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of random, and that's why I always loved the band,
right?
Like, and I wanted to make a movie about them for a long time, because it's kind of, they wrote so, like, all of the massive stuff. They wrote it, but when they were so young, like, but all before they were like 22 or 23, right. And it's like, and these enormous, like, spectacular pieces of art. And then it's like, where do you go after? I mean, they kind of broke up afterwards, but it was kind of, you know, and they all obviously do different things, but it's kind of, I just couldn't imagine like this a massive, amazing output. And you're 22. I can't even remember being 22.
Right. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I was definitely, but you were working by that point. By the time you were 22.
Yeah. But I mean, it's all like, yeah. My memory is just a sieve.
Was Harry Potter the first big thing?
Probably the first big thing. Yeah, I did 2 movies before that. One I got cut from.
Oh shit!
And
welcome to the entertainment business.
Yeah. And then another one. The one after that was this kind of Viking movie in South Africa with Kristanna Loken and Julian Sands. Which like was just, I was like maybe 16 or something, wow. And it was just like the most incredible experience. And I'd really gotten it by accident. Just I still hadn't really thought. I mean, I hadn't thought at all about being. I never really thought about being like actually being an actor until I was 25 or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, it was just like, yeah, because it was kind of. It just seems so uncertain. I mean, like now, I always just think I approach everything thinking it's going to be my last thing every single time, and it's kind of a lot of my decision-making process. It's like, is this the one you're going to go down for? Like, you know, better make the decision for the right reason.
Well, I think when Tom Hanks first started working, I heard the story that he had a theory that, you're given your first movie, and if it does well, you get 3 more chances, and if any of those do well, then you get 3 more chances based on those.
That's true, yeah.
But now I just think. There's so many things have changed so much, and there's so many different types of movies you can make, and so many different types of content you can make. Mm-hmm. But I mean, do you?
And if you get a bit of fame, you can go into escorting.
You can, you can do that too. Yeah. But do you? So when you say like, oh, you approach it like this could be your last one, is that more from the well, it could all end here, or is it more like, well, if it ends, this is the one that I'm proud of, and I'm okay with that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's also it's like it's saying if you made. It's like if you did, it's just the decision making process. If you did something to say like, oh, I always just think if I'm doing something which I think is going to be like a hit, for instance, and then you try and make a hit, and then it's over afterwards, and the only reason you did it is because you thought someone else would like it,
right? Like
it would just be the worst thing ever,
right?
But in general, like pretty much every single thing I've done, I had. It was an educated guess, but I had many, many different reasons when, even if the movie didn't end up being good or no one saw it or anything, I still got at least 2 things which meant something important to me afterwards. So that you just never lose at that point. Like, I think. I mean, I don't think I feel like that.
Things are going pretty well. I think things are going pretty well. But it must have been such a head trip to... because Cedric Diggory is an integral character in Harry Potter, but he's not in the story a ton, mm-hmm. and then he dies, mm-hmm. and so but just even stepping into that, I feel like the public response to you was immediate, and that mm-hmm. must have been pretty odd to experience.
Yeah, no, I mean it was interesting because I was living in Soho when the premiere happened. Was I? Yes, I was. No, I wasn't. I was living with my parents. And I think, anyway. But I remember walking through Leicester Square the day before, and it was just like nothing. And then the next day, you're doing this crazy premiere, and everyone's screaming. And then the next day, I went back again, and it was nothing again.
Oh,
and it was
wow.
like, and it was kind of, it was just this interesting thing. And it's kind of what happened with my career, really, after that. Because I got American representation. And then it was kind of like you had like a little moment or whatever, and then it just fizzles out, and you kind of I can't actually remember. I think I did a play afterwards, and I got fired from the play.
Oh, really?
And then I'd basically been on like a roll of getting jobs up until that point. So I thought like, oh, this is going to be my life, and then it just suddenly hit a brick wall. And then, but I it's just so nice to have had those moments, because then when Twilight came along, you had this big peak, but it's kind of, I could quite successfully disassociate myself from that, and so I don't think I was too like psychologically vulnerable, like to thinking like, oh, if this is taken away, then it's cool, like it's like there's you'll just find another road to do something else.
Yeah, well, that's good, because I know you also do. I mean, I know you're also a musician too, so I feel like you, and I suspect, because I know you really like, and you're a cinephile. Maybe you'll direct something at some point.
I don't know. I mean, it's funny. I think these guys. I think the Safdies are just such wonderful directors, and just seeing so much of it is like, for one thing, you have to have an incredibly organized mind, which I have not at all, at all. And the other, you had to have like pretty phenomenal people skills, and it's kind of, I mean, it's such a huge part of it. I mean, lots of people can kind of imagine a movie and how to make a movie in their head and technically know how to do it, but just there are so many other elements involved to be good at it. But I don't know, maybe it's kind of, I've only just started to be able to really understand the relationship between a director and an actor like fairly recently, and I guess because you do anything for almost 15 years, and it's like you have to learn something. It's physically impossible to not learn anything.
I mean, what do you think is the most important thing that you? I mean, it's interesting to hear you say that only recently did you start learning something. So what do you think that was?
Well, I mean, it's not really necessarily that, but it's kind of like, you just have to have more trust in yourself, and because like when you don't have trust in yourself, then you can't trust the director either. And so I would constantly be thinking that I somehow needed to like mold a story from inside it as the performance, rather than just accepting that it's like it's their medium. And also I just got better at choosing directors as well. It's kind of, and I sort of realized, like, because sometimes you work with a director and they're not in control of it, and so you panic and you try and control it, but you literally can't control it as an actor at all. Like it's impossible.
Well, because you just have one small piece.
Yeah, you're just a cog, and all you'll do if you try and do your own thing, you'll just break the machine.
Right.
And and so I guess I kind of now, I just have quite a smooth relationship with everybody I work with. It's way less contentious than it used to be.
Well, that's good. I mean, do you feel more comfortable now with what you're doing? Like, do you say like, well, you have to learn something in 15 years, but do you feel like, okay, I think I understand what I'm doing now?
Kind of. I mean, it's just sort of, it's just you just pick up tiny pieces. I don't really know, because it's still kind of random. And I was talking to Benny, one of the directors who was editing it, and just saying like, I'm not the type of person in my life or in movies where I know how I'll do one thing and then kind of finesse it as like on multiple takes or whatever. I'm just rolling the dice. Like you just press, you just say action. It's like, well, see what happens now. Literally, and then at the end of the take, it's like, go to sleep, and then new day again.
That's really the best way to do it, though, because you cannot. I think if you come in, it's similar to what you were saying about like if you try to have a hit movie, you like trying to control the result is impossible, especially because you don't know what the mindset of the other actors are going to be that day. You don't know if the lighting rig is going to fall, and then you got to stop down, and you have to somehow stay focused for like you have to be flexible the entire time.
So I never really understood even the idea of focus, because like being really focused means you're thinking one thing, like, which is not particularly interesting, like, to watch it. Like, if you're just kind of all over the place, it looks like there's stuff going on in your head. Yeah, so it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of almost wanting to stay in a state of flux constantly. And I think also, as soon as I realize what I'm thinking about, it's boring. And so it's kind of better to just be like,
Now we'll just start and see how it goes. I mean, I think sometimes, you know, the first or second take that you do of something is, I think, sometimes likely that's probably going to be the one, because you're not, you know, it's like once you do it 3 or 4 or 5 times, like now you're really thinking about, oh, I should do this and try it this way and then do this.
But I mean, I guess it's just random. I mean, it's kind of, sometimes you do it 10 times when suddenly it's like, oh. I mean, it's kind of real. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm spectacularly bad at understanding things as well. Like, I'm literally just like, I'll read, I just had to read something off a teleprompter yesterday at a charity thing, and I was trying to read 2 paragraphs, and I was like, I genuinely cannot actually understand what I'm reading. And it's literally like, and it was nothing. It was just describing a charity, and it's like, and I was just reading it to like practice just reading, because I get so nervous in like public speaking. And just reading this thing in the car, and I was suddenly, after like the 15th time, I was like, oh, that's what it is.
There it is. I got it. Yeah, but that's a really good. I mean, it's always interesting to hear, because I think when people think, oh, well, if you're an actor, or you have a public persona, you gave the bottle. That was pretty spectacular what you just did. There's just so people listening. Bottle was the water bottle was difficult to open. Like the teeth bottle opener. That was spectacular. That was spectacularly done. And that was good improv in a moment. Like, I got to get this open. I don't want to make too much noise. I'm going to make this work. But, I think people assume, oh, well, if you do this thing, it's public. Naturally, you're super outgoing and a public guy, and you should be able to. And I find, a lot of actors in particular are like, no, I mean, I like being other characters because it feels weird to be me publicly a lot of the time, and that's the one that I haven't quite conquered yet.
Yeah. Well, I get nervous when I think there's any kind of expectation. I mean, that's it. Right. In any form of my life, if there's any expectation, then I'll freak out and fail. I just have to like set up my entire life to make sure that I'm in my own lane and I'm not competing with anybody. Otherwise, I know I can't compete. So I was so bad at auditioning, like I kind of don't like it. Like,
it's not a good process.
Yeah, it's like, but if you kind of realize, but like if you invent your own game and no one else knows the rules apart from you, it's like, then it's fine.
Yeah, but it's if I can just get the person on the other side of the table to utter one word, like just have some sort of that's at least having a plan and gaining some control over the situation. But the entire process, I feel like, is designed to be a steeplechase. It's like, oh, if you can get through this awful process, then we will
auditioning. Yes. Yeah. And it's also just like, it's crazy. I mean, it's just crazy. Like, I mean, it's really like, I mean, that's after a while, like, I mean, it's like kind of. I mean, everybody says it's like it's kind of weirdly brutal. But I mean, literally after Twilight, I basically auditioned for 2 things. I've done 2 auditions since, like, and it's kind of, and it's like, I didn't get either one. No, I got one. I didn't get the other one. But I know, I just like, that's just not. It's not my thing. I don't know, and I'll never be good at it.
But the good thing is you don't really have to be at this point. You can meet with the director, or you like the director and you like the thing, then you can do it.
Not really. I mean, it's kind of, it's funny, like, a lot of this press stuff, it's like, oh, so you can like pick and choose what you want. It's like, not at all. I mean, it's like the one thing I like. I mean, in terms of like big things that with big directors who are known that I'd want to work with, I mean, it's, and I mean, I haven't done enough stuff for people to really say, oh yeah, it's like, I'm not really that known. And for the stuff I'm known for, it's like very specific and kind of, I mean, a lot of it anyway, the stuff which people have seen, and it doesn't, I don't necessarily know if someone would be convinced by that. And I think, if someone's hiring you to just get financing or whatever, then I don't really want to work with them anyway.
Right.
And so it's kind of, it's random. I mean, I think that the thing which I've really realized over the last few years, I really like sort of being like an A&R kind of person. Like, I like finding someone, like, I don't do anything apart from scour the world to try and find people who the majority of people haven't really realized their true potential yet, and then completely go in on them and say, like, I believe, and I'm committing 1,000,000%, and like kind of overwhelming them. I mean, that's what I did on this.
But that's the best way. I mean, the people who do that tend to have the most interesting careers, because then you're not limited by one genre or one style or one thing, or being obsessed with like being a movie star or making ego-based decisions, or the spectacularly most failure producing decisions, because those are the ones where you was like, oh, I'm gonna be a big star. Like,
Yeah.
well,
I mean, I like movies as well, and so it's kind of, I like, and I was talking about this the other. I mean, I'm not trying. A lot of actors don't even watch movies at all. It's kind of, and it's the two things aren't associated with them. Like, but acting, I mean, I only am doing acting because there's certain movies which I kind of imagine myself in some ways being like, oh, maybe I could be in that. But I also, at the same time, when I imagine myself in the movies I like, I feel like I kind of ruin them. but it's like, just there's that element. Like, I watch a lot of movies, and but shit, what was I supposed to say?
You were talking about finding different directors. Most actors don't watch movies, and that you're a fan of movies, and you're assembling.
Yeah, it's gone.
It's gone.
It's gone.
You know what?
Died.
It's if you. Here's what's going to happen. If you say to your brain, "I let this go, and it's okay," you'll get it. Like you'll get by the end of the thing. And even if we're not even talking about it anymore, if you just go, "Aha!" then you just break in at any point, and that's totally fine. But I wonder, just because. Hearing you sort of talk about, and everyone, what you're saying.
Remembered.
Yes.
Remembered. Oh no! It's like, oh yeah, just in terms of choosing stuff, like, and a lot of people would choose things like how they'll see a script or something and think it kind of fits into a kind of zeitgeist, or like, they'll have an idea of a type of character that they want to play, and then they actively search out that kind of type. But oh no, it's falling apart again. Okay, I'm moving on from this. It's cursed. It's cursed.
No, it's not. I feel like what would be fun is like every 5 minutes you remember another piece of it, and then by the end we stitch it together. This is the narrative of this podcast, is the trail of finding whatever the thought was. But it doesn't matter, because I mean, it isn't whatever. I think ultimately the idea that you are a huge fan of film and you love watching film, and that's the best place to come from. And that's what I was saying is those people have the most interesting careers. The people that don't just make ego-based decisions but make passion-based decisions. But I'm kind of curious to hear you talk about, when you say, oh, I could be in it, but I'd ruin it, I mean, at what point, because obviously I think it's good to be grounded, and I think it's good to be a little self-deprecating, because, you never want to be too into what you're doing, because then you just don't grow if you do that. But at what point do you think that's detrimental, where, you don't want to be too negative? But I feel like so many of us have that mechanism of just punching yourself down, so how do you keep that from getting too out of control?
Yeah, it's like that's the line you ride, and it's kind of, and I mean, literally, I've had the same. It's my agents actually. Well, now pretty much everybody in my life. Whenever I start a movie, for ages, but for like a month before, well, 2 months beforehand, there's a whole process of going like, I'll be really, really obsessed for ages. I'll read the script and be like, it's going to be amazing. And then as it gets closer and closer and closer, like, it becomes more and more of a mystery to me. I'm literally like, I don't even, and to the point where like, you're thinking, I don't even understand the script. It doesn't even make any sense. It's not even written in English. I mean, you're like, and all these people are actually terrible. I mean, you like watch all the director's previous work, which you used to think was so incredible and inspiring. It suddenly just looks like, this is actually all shit. Like, what the fuck? And then like everything, it just gets worse and worse and worse, and the spiral gets out of control. And like, and then it's like, I mean, you sort of start taking it out on everyone around you, and then And everyone used to kind of have a lot of sympathy for it, going like, oh, you know, like you need to like some deal with your anxiety stuff. And then by the time I start shooting, it all just dissipates. And then someone told me it was my agent. She was like, you just like this. You like the feeling. You get high off anxiety.
Sure.
And it's literally, and I was like, oh, sure. Yeah. Yep.
Well, and
I
there's
never really thought about it before.
You know, yeah, it's sort of it's kind of an addiction to drama because
it's an adrenaline junkie.
It is an adrenaline junkie because you're creating a situation in which you kind of feel these highs and lows, but then what compounds it is that you get very superstitious about it, where you're like, well, every time I do this, it works, and so this must be part of that process.
Well, it's just making it real for you, and the most real thing in the world is like pain.
Sure.
And so if you somehow figure out some kind of psychological or physical pain which is associated with the job, you know, it's why so many actors or any kind of artist, like they think that, you know, they have to be devastated or whatever. It's like that's the thing, because it feels real when it's painful,
right?
And like and so you have to set up all the stuff. So even when everyone else knows you're faking it or you're doing it as an addiction or whatever, you still have to do it with and you have to figure out a way to trick them and say, it's like, well, I know you think that bit was fake, that last time I did was fake, but now I'm going to make it
that was the real one. Now I'm doubling down. But it's funny to say, like, it makes it real, when I think the ironic part of it is that it's not entirely real because it's a manufactured process by your brain. But
then that's the question about everything. It's like, well, do you invent every feeling yourself?
Oh yeah, I mean, you have to, because you know, it's just because we're these sort of weird, confused creatures that just popped up on this planet, and you know, we have to create a reality that somehow makes sense to us and is grounded in something, even if that isn't, you know, even if that's a thing that we because of our perception, we essentially manufacture everything. Everything's manufactured. So,
my dad is always. I love my dad's giving relationship advice and sitting next to my mum. They've been married for, I think, nearly like 40 years or whatever.
Wow.
And my dad's like, you know, at the end of the day, love's just a fantasy you've created for yourself. It's only in your own head. Doing this thing, and I'm literally like, you shouldn't say this in front of her.
He's right, you know. What? Well, yeah, I mean, it is, but it you know, but the more you do it, the sort of adult part of it is that you can say to the people around you, look, I'm going to do this thing, and it's going to happen probably again, but just know that it's not about you. It's just a thing I do. So you know, just go, okay, you know, and don't take it seriously, and know that it'll be okay.
Yeah, but then you need the reaction. They need that. Literally, you can't. You say, I need to make it painful for you too.
Everyone's gonna feel. Everyone's gotta feel.
I mean, that's generally why I kind of stay in isolation if I'm trying to do something. It's just so much easier because you create real arguments, which then you have to deal with afterwards. Whereas if you're just in isolation, it's easier.
Well, I'm sure I'm sure everyone's has a friend or has been in a situation where you're in a relationship your friends are in a relationship where it's like, you guys just argue all the time. Why are you together? I don't know. And then you realize, like, they need it.
Yeah, they love it.
They need the spike of like arguing, making up, and so, you know, but to hear you put it in those terms, it's almost like you form a codependent relationship with your own brain, which is such a bizarre, you know, mind fuck to think like, why would my brain do this to me?
That's literally. I mean, I have those conversations all the time. I mean, literally every single decision I make, I consult my brain, and it's literally like, which is the yes bigger or the no bigger?
What do you? I don't know. I don't know.
I think that's a yes.
But you know, the really fucked up part about it is that we really have very little control over anything. And there's nothing, you know.
You might as well just make totally random decisions.
Yeah, in a way, like, you know, you see people that just sort of like, you know. Someone said to me once, like, you know, in life there are scrappers and there are floaters, and some people just have to fucking fight and punch and scratch and kick all their way through, and there's some people that just float, and they both can get to the same place, you know, but it's just sort of how you get there, I guess.
Yeah. I like it. Does sound like two different types of shit.
Yeah, it does. It's very scatological. Yes,
I'm more of a scrappy floater.
Another floater.
Yeah,
I think based on principle, I couldn't call myself a floater because that is right there. It would be really bad news. But yeah, I mean, I think but the older you get and the more you go through it and the more you sort of recognize this, because do you have any friends who are like 40 years older than you are, 30 years older than you are?
Yeah.
That's good, because I think it's good to have someone who's not like necessarily a family member, so that they're not
emotionally clouded because they have a relationship to you. But I feel like having an older person in your life is really great because it can shave so much of the things that you think are unique to you, or just like, oh, this impossible, insurmountable hurdle of my brain. They go, yeah. That to a degree you'll always have that, but the thing is, it's okay.
Yeah, I never understand that. As literally, people think that's a comforting thing,
And that bothers you.
Yeah, I don't. I've never understood by saying like, yeah, we're all the same at the end of the day. That is the most terrifying thing of all. Like, it's kind of, I've never understood saying like, I can relate as a thing. It's literally like, really? I don't want you to be able to relate.
Do you think so? You think the sameness is sort of weird, or you think like you think that the experience needs to be unique to you?
Yeah, and if someone if someone can understand it, if someone's listening to someone else's problems or something, I always find it strange when someone's saying. It's like, oh yeah, well, this is because of this and this is because of that. It's like if you're saying, if you say something and someone acknowledges your unique individuality, I think it's much more comforting. Saying and if someone's saying like, well, I guess, well, I don't know. I guess it's a different type of people. Like sometimes, that makes someone feel totally alone.
Sure.
But like, I don't know. Like I just always, I find it much scarier to think you're just part of a herd and you're just a number. I think I would almost prefer to be unique and alone.
Well, I think
I probably can.
I think it's nice to know that there are shared experiences that people can have, but I don't think they're mutually exclusive. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think, we can both look at this table, which is a very nice, round, shiny table, and in my head I go, okay, this table is shiny, and I know that you probably have an understanding of, you go, yes, that is shiny. But that doesn't mean that because we have this shared agreement on what we think this surface is, that doesn't take away from the fact that you are processing that in a completely unique and different way than I am processing that. Mm-hmm. But I do...
I'm just like, trash!
Rubbish. Yeah. Break. Do you need to destroy things? Like, are you kind of like to smash it all to bits and then sort through the rubble?
No, other than with myself. Like,
sure.
I like doing. I kind of. Yeah, I'm very, very, very in my own head, like almost constantly.
Were you always that way?
Yeah. Like since I was a little kid, like kind of, and kind of, to the point where it's like I need to be in therapy to be more less afraid of confrontation. Like, it's kind of, I hold grudges and never tell people what I'm pissed off at them about. I just don't talk to them ever again. It's just ghosted.
What happened? But I wonder if that. Do you think some of that is British? I feel like British culture is very much about like, hey, you're not fucking, you're part of this community. You're not fucking special. You think you're special? Fuck you. Like, do you think there's any part of it that's that?
Yeah, and maybe a bit of that, and then just kind of, I don't know. I don't like people being histrionic. Like, it's sort of. I don't. I remember growing up. My dad was like, "You can do anything you want, just don't be loud."
Right.
And it's kind of. I guess there's some kind of something with that. And I don't know. I don't like that. I was always just very uncomfortable with like kind of people not thinking things through all the time, and I think that's why now I'm very attracted to parts where it's people who are very on the front foot and not really second guessing themselves. I think it's like a fantasy for myself.
Oh well, that's good though. I mean, I think that's it's kind of it's fun to think about acting sometimes, because sometimes you talk to performers and they go, hey, it's a job. You go in and you pretend
it's not a job. I never understood that at all. Like, literally, it's not a job. If it's a job, it's like literally the best job ever.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's literally just kind of, but it's completely random. It's like a kind of a hybrid therapy kind of. I mean, maybe some people, I don't know, maybe some people do see it literally as a job, but I think that's crazy. Like,
Right.
I don't understand what you're doing then. So you're just making faces. You practice making faces, and then you do
some people,
you're
some
a
people
face
do.
for hire.
But
it's so crazy. I mean, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I have no idea what the skills are. I literally just know it's like there's something which I want to confront in my real life. I'm going to use the excuse of this fictional situation, which is like a kind of safety net, a reality safety net, and saying like, oh, I can do all this stuff because it's not real,
right?
But it is real,
right?
Like, it's
right.
real. It's like you can't not be you.
No, and at some deep level in the sort of in your limbic system, your brain doesn't necessarily differentiate between like, oh, you are saying and doing these things, you are feeling these things, therefore it must be real.
Yeah, it's like literally, it's just a way to experiment with how you would kind of feel in a situation, and you can have a safety net. It's literally because most of the time you'll avoid doing certain things because you don't want to have to deal with the consequences afterwards. Whereas you can kind of, in a movie, you can kind of do things and then sort of not really deal with the consequences. So you sort of feel it. Like, you know, obviously you don't feel it fully, but like you feel a bit of it, and like it's kind of. And that bit which you're feeling is real. I mean, I think it should be real anyway.
Is there a specific type of genre film that you see? You watch movies all the time and you love movies. Is there a specific genre that you're more drawn to, or do you just like the sort of the broad scope of experiencing everything?
Yeah, I mean, I just like stuff that feels kind of... I like the massive scope. I don't really have any specific genre or anything.
Do you just sort of like go to Netflix or iTunes or whatever and just go? It probably knows you by now. So like in terms of like, oh, you watch these type of movies, so here's this.
I didn't realize that Netflix. I mean, I know this is really dumb, but I had no idea that Netflix is being tailored to you.
Oh yeah, it gets in your head.
Yeah, but I mean, I was like, I don't understand why, like, what I've chosen to make it. It doesn't make any sense to me, the algorithm. But like. Yeah, no, I mean, I kind of, I just see one thing and then kind of, I have such an insular life.
Broad,
I mean,
right.
I literally, I'll find a writer. I mean, all I do all day is like look up what other things they did, blah, blah, blah. There's also an amazing video store here called, Cinephile Video.
Yeah, of course.
Like, it's incredible. And like, you can generally get like a director's entire catalog from that place, and because a lot of it's not on Netflix or anywhere. Yeah, from a lot of classic directors, and you can get 20 movies and just do everything. And I kind of love doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I mean this is a total compliment, but I think you don't give yourself enough credit for how much you really do think about things. I mean, it sounds like you're very thoughtful and very, to sort of go down the rabbit hole and understand an element of something that you are really passionate and excited about. I mean, that's not random. You really do. I think you are kind of crafting a world that is exciting without necessarily admitting to yourself that that's kind of what you're doing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm definitely like doing it, but it's kind of, there's something about people just like bigging themselves up too much, especially in, I don't know, when you just see, I don't know what that is. It's like, it's kind of, it just feels weird to me. Like just kind of being too earnestly saying, well, this is the answer, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I don't fucking know.
Yeah, I mean,
you have to do things that excite you, and it's like, and it's kind of, you're constantly looking for things to be inspired and excited by, and like, it's kind of, I just find it really strange when people can think about it the other way, going like, I'm the thing that's inspiring, exciting.
Oh, right,
like,
right.
It's literally, I'm just I like being a sponge for things.
Yeah, what types of things do you find? What types of roles when you're looking at scripts and you go, oh, I'm really obsessed with this. I really want to try to make this work. Does a lot of it come from this place that you were talking about challenging yourself in terms of processing things and therapy, or is it more like, oh, I've never played this type of a character before, and I think I might like to try that?
Yeah, there's like a whole bunch of different. I mean, sometimes I'll just see something which someone's done, and then I just think it's like magical. Like I saw this guy Ciro Guerra I'm doing a movie with next year. He did this movie called Embrace of the Serpent, which is this Colombian movie, which I just remember seeing it in the theater and just being like, this is like insane. It's like one of the most. It's like a magical thing. Like from the first shot, you're just like, wow. Like how? I don't even understand how it's made. So I just kind of just another person that just basically hassled until he gave me a job. and I was I mean, luckily the next job is amazing. Like. But yeah, and it's with really good people and stuff. But yeah, I was just like, yeah, I'll just do anything. I don't care. Like it's kind of, I want to see why did you make? How could you make something that was magical? Right. Are you actually magical?
Right. Like, yeah, and that's funny because you probably are really interested in. Do you kind of grill them about their process?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but it's you can't. I don't think anyone can really explain like their thing. It's kind of, it's sort of. I mean, in general as well, there's no like magic to it. It's like there's sort of someone will have an innate talent, but generally it's like how boring it is. It's just putting like tons of time and practice and work into it. And,
right.
Like, that is what it is. Like,
yeah.
It's like someone just will put in more effort and good effort, not just like pointless, like going around the hamster wheel effort.
Right.
Like, it's kind of, they just have more enthusiasm than the average person.
It's interesting. It's kind of interesting how everything comes back around subconsciously, because we started this conversation talking about magic and the magic castle. And you just said something that was really interesting, which was, well, it's not magic. They put the work in. And that's really...
But there is magic.
There is magic, but it comes from preparation. It comes from preparation and understanding. And, a magician can make something look seamless, but they've put so much you don't see all the time and the work and the effort and the obsession and that's, so there, I think there is an illusion to it, but I think that organic magic quality comes out because they've gotten to a point where they're not super conscious of it anymore, that it's just sort of in their being.
And there are like some, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I love my favorite. One of my sister's best friends was a magician, and he'd do tricks. Like, he was an incredible magician. Like, I remember he'd always wear the same outfit, and he like got drunk. Like, the only time I've ever seen him get drunk, he took his jacket off, and I was just randomly picking up his jacket, and it had all these threads and stuff in it, like ready to go, like no matter what. Like,
oh wow,
that's incredible. But he did this. He did this trick, which I thought was always the most amazing one, where he just said, think of a card, and he'd just tell you a card.
Oh, shit.
There's no cards or anything. He didn't even get a pack of cards out. And he would, 90% of the time, get the right card. And I was like, Jesus Christ, how are you doing this?
Do you want to know how he does it, or do you like not knowing?
No, I mean, it's like micro expressions and stuff. And it's also because most people follow the same patterns. But I mean, but I still think, the whole point is like, I think if you're a true magician, then you are actually looking for the thing which is real. Like, the real man is not a trick, and like and hopefully eventually you'll find it.
Are you gonna get any time to go home and rest or anything, or do you need to be moving at all times?
I rest way too much. I haven't done anything for a long time. I've finished this press stuff and then go straight into another movie, which I've been preparing for 3 years, and now I'm going to go with 3 weeks actual prep.
Oh, shit.
After I'm supposed to be kind of been in it for years and years.
I mean, that's... You started the process 3 years ago, or you got involved 3 years ago, and it's just now getting made?
Yeah.
Fucking movies. I don't... like That's so amazing to me. That doesn't kill the creativity. It's like... because you're a different person than you were 3 years ago, so how do you...
So I was talking about it's because it's like... I just think all of these things is just having a relationship with someone, and like you have that initial moment, you've just you only fall in love with people or things so many times, and like if like you find something and like you just get that feeling of like falling in love with it, you might not necessarily know what it is, but like you should 100% chase it down afterwards. And like with this next thing, I remember seeing. It's this director called Claire Denis, who's like one of my favorite directors. But I remember seeing her the first movie I saw of hers was I was shooting the last Twilight movie in Louisiana, and it was just on TV. And I remember watching it and just being like so struck. And that was 5.5 years ago, maybe.
Oh wow!
And tracked her down and like kind of. And she'd never made a fully English language movie before, and it's just like, just kind of staying involved, and like you just have to believe in a kind of and it's kind of, and like I genuinely wouldn't be able to describe to you what the movie's about at all.
But you just know there's something about it that feels good and feels like something you want to be a part of.
I just know it's going to be a thing.
I mean, when you that's okay. Do you need to? You got it. No problem. Where are we at now? Oh yeah. Oh, we're at 50 already? Holy shit. Oh, my God. This is really nice of you to sit down and chat for an hour.
No worries.
I mean, sometimes it can be very hard to convince people if they're like, in the middle of a day, I got to do what? You know? So hopefully...
I'm on crank. I can't stop talking. I need to be in bed in another room.
Let's talk for another 4 hours. Let's stay up all night. Let's build an amusement park.
Yeah, exactly.
But then I'm sure you'll have that moment where at some point today you'll just like crash.
I know. I'm just quite sick. I have to do Jimmy Kimmel like after this, and like I'm kind of terrified about going on. Just be like,
You know, you just reminded me that one of the times I did Kimmel, you were the lead guest and I was the second guest.
Really?
Yes.
That's
yes.
crazy.
Yes. And we didn't meet because it was just a particularly crazy time, and they've since changed Kimmel, where you used to go backstage and then there were
bar
like,
and stuff.
there's bar, but there used to be shit tons of people outside that were like screaming. I mean, so they've kind of blocked all that off, so it's a little easier to get in now.
Really?
But it just, you know, you in particular. It was like everything kind of had to lock down because people were just so like grabby, and it was just sort of a. I mean, just
lots of it had a grabby period.
It was a grabby. I mean, is there any? Because most people will never experience that. So, just it might be a weird question, but what's going on in your head while all that shit's going on, where people are screaming and it's like they're screaming Twilight or whatever it is, and you are trying to retain some piece of your humanity and go, "Hey, I'm just a guy. I'm a guy." Like, what is going on in your head while all that's happening?
I mean, kind of luckily, like I sort of have, like I'll be, if I'm in a calm situation, my brain will be filled with anxiety and panic. And then if I'm in a panicky, anxiety-inducing situation, my brain just completely calms, and I'm totally zen afterwards, which is just, I have no idea why, and it's literally it's kind of a helpful, weird thing to have been born with, but it genuinely does. It's kind of like I get a dump of serotonin, like whenever something feels really nerve-wracking, and it's just like, and I'm like, my heartbeat slows down and everything.
That's incredible.
It's really crazy. And so you kind of, you have these sort of weird out-of-body experiences. And also at the same time, with all that stuff, I'm just also have a desperate need to make people like me all the time. And so like you have people screaming, you're just like, oh, just like me. Like, what do I have to do?
You've just distilled social media in a couple of sentences. Please just like me. Please
and
just
that's
like
why
me.
I can't be on it.
Oh, yeah.
I would never get off my phone. I'd be staring at it again.
And then unfortunately, because, you know, especially if you have any insecurity about anything, you'll read 1,000 things that are really nice, and one person will say something that just sticks in your gut, and then you're obsessing on it all day, and you're like, well, that was a complete waste of energy, you know?
Yeah, no, 100%.
But I think that's a nice power to have, and also I think it. You know, it's nice to know that you know that this stuff does kind of go through a process in your brain and does actually, you know, because people see you, they go, oh, the guy didn't even look over here. He's so full of himself. And you're like, no, he's just trying not to get upset, you know? Yeah. Like, people don't know. I mean, during, you know...
I like it as well. I like it. With that, it's just fight or flight, really. Like, in a lot of and it's kind of when someone confronts you about something, it's like... It is. I mean, it's happened a few times. Like the kind of you're either totally zen, or if one person says like the wrong thing, and then there's like suddenly 5 years of like like compressed rage, which all get thrown out on that one person.
Yeah, and then the bummer part is then people go, oh, then they define you by that one moment. It's like, you know, I think part of the agreement, unfortunately, with what, you know, when you get to a certain level is. People might define you in a moment and not give you the grace of being a human being, which you are.
I think it's also the funny thing as well. You kind of, if you just somehow kind of maintain any kind of career for long enough, no matter what your self sort of, it does somehow come out. Like people kind of get a feeling of who you actually are in the public. Like it's sort of, it's just impossible to keep something contained, like especially now, it's just impossible unless you literally never leave your house.
Right.
But then it's pretty clear what type of person you are as well.
Right. But I mean that urge of like if people have one impression of you to be able to go, hey guys, no, I'm just a come on, please just know who I am. Please just understand me as a person.
Yeah. But I mean, it's the same thing with that kind of aspect. I've never given a shit like about it. It's kind of just sort of, unless it just the only reason I'm doing it is to do movies, right, to play parts, and it's like the only time my personal stuff would ever worry me or I think I need to address it is if it's affecting my ability to get jobs, and that's it. But like, really, I just kind of do interviews and I kind of like want to just have fun in them and stuff. And like, but I've never. I only got a publicist about 2 months ago.
Oh, really?
Like, I've never had one before.
They're very helpful.
I've just said no to everything forever, and it's kind of I've never really. I don't understand how to manipulate your own like your real kind of life or whatever to somehow make it work for your job. It's just too complicated for me.
I'm glad you didn't say no to this because this was an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and I hope you had a nice time. And Good Time opens LA and New York August 11th, in additional cities on the 18th, but then completely wide on the 25th.
God, I wish I could remember stuff like that. I'm literally that's just great. I'm just completely got in one ear out the other.
Thank you so much for being here, Rob. It was really nice to see you.
Thanks a lot. Nice to see you too.
All right, take care. Enjoy your burrito, everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Now leaving Nerdist.com. Enjoy your burrito.